Where does that urge to settle down come from? Like, if like that's a cultural thing imputed on us?
Because like everybody around you is also like
Yeah.
exiting this life stage as you're like entering your 30s.
Right.
There's so much more that we need to push ourselves to consider.
I mean, I think people have always advised if you want to pivot, make the decision. Should you go get a move on building the skills towards your longer term career? Experiment, trial and error to figure out your priorities, and then that in turn helps shape like what you continue to say yes to.
I had like these friends who were like talking about like liking one of their really good friends. I get that you didn't want to mess up the friendship like 5 years ago when we were like in college, but like now's the time, Loki. So we got these new mics.
It was because Carol was spitting too much, and so
What the heck?
we needed these little filters.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money on them, and yet we are not making money from this podcast. So
Not yet.
Not yet.
Until you subscribe.
please subscribe so that we can pay ourselves back. You don't want to see behind this table that's covering it, but there's a really jank setup under there.
I'm like learning some audio recording from this person who's like a DJ and like is starting her own radio show. She was like, especially when there's a full setup, sometimes people get intimidated. And so you just got to ease them into.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So should we ease ourselves into this?
Yeah. How do we ease ourselves?
You can start with like your name, where you're from.
I'm Carol. And I'm from San Diego, California, which if you look at my hands, this is the state of California. I'm really down here.
Oh.
Right there next to Mexico.
Uh-huh.
The new earring that you have, it makes your ear looks like the Turkish flag.
What?
The Turkish flag is a moon and like a star in the crescent of the moon.
Oh.
And you have a moon earring and then a dot earring.
Yeah.
Inside the moon. It either looks like the Turkish flag or it looks like Pac-Man.
I've always just thought it was a moon
And a dot.
and a dot.
The moon and stars, they wept. Anyway.
I did get a double piercing this week.
She
I faced
did.
my fear.
Good job, Cinder.
I was like, I don't know how it's gonna feel, but
Yeah.
I got it and it didn't hurt. So
job.
I'm proud of myself.
You're so cool.
Thanks. I am.
Wow.
No,
a low piercing?
honestly,
That's so tough.
I really am. What are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today, Cinder?
Originally, we came into this recording session with a completely different topic, but I was just hanging out with a friend who was like, I'm stressed about dating because I'm getting old. And I was like, you're a guy, you're fine. But that got us talking about the
Timelines,
yeah, and just the clock of
the inevitable clock.
being in your 20s.
Yeah.
And initially we were talking about like the biological clock, and I think people like mentioned that in reference to dating and like marriage and family and settling down. But like there's so much beyond that. There's like knowing that your 20s is like an iconic era where like there's so much freedom and there's so much possibility and we have
True.
energy and
And it's a ticking time bomb.
bomb. And at the end of the bomb is settling down into a suburban
I
home.
know.
It doesn't have to be, but yeah, just the clock of like making the most of your 20s.
Yeah.
So, and that shapes many of the decisions, I think.
Yeah. And I do feel like now that we're... I'm 25. I'm 25. You're like
and I'm
29.
26.
Excuse me.
Have you seen that meme between Kendall and Kylie? Kylie's like, I'm 25, you're like 30. And then Kendall's like, Kylie, that's so rude. She's like, I'm 27. Anyways, as we're entering our late
mid-20s.
Our mid-20s.
Yep. As we continue on.
As we continue through the ages that is the mid-20s.
The roaring
The roaring
20s.
mid-20s. It does just seem like it's coming up on us.
Yeah. I think we've had conversations, if not like about this topic, like it like just gets folded in that like this era, this life stage is limited.
Yeah.
Is finite.
Yeah.
And like when we first came out of college, that was
It
not
felt like
on our minds
infinite.
at all.
It felt
Yeah.
like our like 20s were going to be like
Yeah.
forever.
Then like all of a sudden we're like, wait, we just like hit our 4th year of adulthood.
I know. Yeah.
We
Yikes.
just like
It just hit
graduated
me again.
the full length of time that we were in college. We have now lived as adults. And freshman year was 8 years ago.
Yeah. Oof.
Time does pass by faster.
It does.
As an adult.
Yeah.
And now we're like, we want to take hold of that.
Hold fast.
Hold your horses.
No. Anyway. Hold your horses. Anyway.
Okay. The horses are going quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for agreeing before you process that.
Wait, do you want to share what your 30-year-old friend said about like what he's thinking about, the 3 categories?
Oh, yeah. What he worries about the most is work, dating, friendship / who are his community. And I was like, oh, I know like 2 girls who talk about that very often, like usually Tuesday mornings.
On a podcast.
Called We Don't Know Yet.
Yep.
But besides that, like that resonated. I think generally, like what takes up most of my mental space probably falls along those lines too.
True.
Yeah, and the clock of the 20s influences how we approach each of those, I think.
So maybe we can start with how it affects how we approach dating. We've never really talked about dating on this podcast, so this is the first time.
Except for us overanalyzing the dating lives of fictional characters on TV.
Right. Check
Watch
out our
that.
last episode.
Yep. Our friend, he was like, I'm stressed about it because I'm getting old. And then I like jokingly clapped back, like, you're a guy. Like, you don't have a biological clock. And he was like, no, like, settling down is more and more on his mind. Like, he feels the desire to settle down. And that's approaching more, like, faster and faster. It is, like, more of, like, an existential or, like, a meta question. Like, where does that urge to settle down come from? Like, I sometimes wonder if, like, that's a cultural thing imputed on us to be like, oh, by your mid-30s, you should, like, have your life figured out and you're starting to settle down. So...
Yeah, I do feel like... Or I feel like for women, we have biological clocks, so there's, like... I feel like we also like just mentally start thinking about it earlier, like, or as far as I've seen. I do feel like for men though, it's probably, not to speak on behalf of all men, but like, I feel like it's more of a social construct probably.
Maybe.
Yeah. Because like everybody around you is also like
Yeah.
exiting this life stage as you're like entering your 30s.
Right.
And like having kids. Last night we were talking about a friend who's like getting to a relationship now, and like me getting into a relationship like in college, we like had similar problems, but it was like so much more pressing for her to figure out those problems now that she's entering into a relationship at 25, 26, than it was for me to figure it out urgently when we were in college.
Right.
So I feel like in college, like, you're just like, you like me, I like you, let's date and hold hands. But like, I feel like in like...
Maybe that was your approach.
But like
yeah.
beyond that, you didn't really think about like overall compatibility or like life preference or like things like that.
Yeah. Also with the self-awareness, like in college too, that like we didn't know like for ourselves what we wanted.
Yeah,
Totally.
True.
But then I think as we have matured and grown, like our preferences and our decisions on how we want to live life and what
has
we
become
want
like so much more clear.
Yeah. And so as it becomes clear for us,
Yeah.
that becomes clear as a consideration for a partner.
True.
Like in terms of compatibility.
Yeah. That means we've come a long way. Like we have learned a lot about ourselves.
So
You know?
the past 4 years weren't for nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good job, Cinder. There's so much more we need to be like intentional about before we get into a relationship. We're like, there's so much more that we need to push ourselves to consider also. So I think it's really easy for us to like be like, oh, we have time.
Right.
Like, let's just keep going and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But we don't have as much of
Yeah.
the luxury as we did when we were in college dating. Like now it's like, actually, like maybe I don't start this with this person because we're not on the same page and I don't have the time.
Yeah. I was also sharing like some experience that I had in college where I was like, oh, I'm not sure about like maybe this aspect of our compatibility, but we can see how it goes. I remember like I first entered into that relationship, the mindset was very much like, let's explore. I'm not sure like what compatibility looks like in certain areas, but like there's attraction. But now with this friend, I was like, if you're not sure in this area, like figure it out ASAP, even before you commit to the relationship, possibly. Possibly.
Yeah. I do feel like this is like this is our perspective, obviously, on like dating. I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like we are more like be intentional,
don't waste
about
the time.
Yeah. And I do feel like there's perfectly valid reason for you to like still, you know, explore and
Totally.
things at age 25, obviously, but like at least for me, like a general age that people like tend to have kids, I'll say like 32. That for me is like 6 years from now. So then for me, 6 years from now, like let's say I need like at least 2 years to figure out if I'm going to marry someone and I'm 25. Then that's going to be like, I'm going to be 27 by that time. Then I'm going to marry them at like maybe 27, 28, because you want to get engaged for a year. You need to plan out your wedding venue. So then you get married at like 28, 29. And then you have like 3 years to explore the world and figure out your career before you have to settle down and have a child.
Oh, yeah. And we'll get into career, but yeah.
So that's like kind of how I've been thinking about it. So that I think that's why I'm like more urgently like thinking about like when I'm dating, I'm like thinking about like what do I need to figure out so that I can.
Right. I feel like that's a good like kind of overarching question. Like, what are the things I want to figure out before you're thinking about the stuff beyond this period of having kids, of settling down. But even like if I consider adopting, the biological clock is not as pressing for me. But even so, we are into the back half of our 20s, which is such a precious time. Like, and I think I'm finally like 4 years out of college at a point where I'm like recognizing how precious this time is, like how much opportunity there is to do that exploring, to discover more of myself and the world. And I'm like we're in a privileged place to not have too many things that are like dependent on us, or like considerations that affect our day-to-day schedules, or like travel plans, or that we can work remotely. It's just like the freedom of this time period to explore and to grow as a human. I don't want to waste that. A friend recently ended a like long relationship, and one of the reasons, besides like, you know, compatibility or whatever, was she was like, there's a lot that I want to explore about myself and about the world, and being in a long-term committed relationship is honestly not conducive for her in that exploring period. And that's for her. I think there are also relationships that like you help each other grow. And so it's just like for each person, recognizing that the 20s is a limited time. And like, how are you going to make the most of that? 20s into 30s, and you know. And
I feel like as pressing as like entering your mid to late 20s gets on like people who like are in a relationship and they're like, oh, maybe I should be single for this period of my life, or I'm single and I want to get into a relationship because I need to start figuring that out, or people who are in a relationship and they're like, oh my gosh, like I can't keep dilly-dallying because like I need to figure stuff out, or else like I'm just gonna be dating this person for a long time and then we're gonna actually have to like face the music one day of like, whoa, this like we actually have incompatibilities we need to talk through.
Oh man, we're not saying like don't waste your time as in like there's pressure to like figure out your stuff, but it's just don't waste your time because your time right now is precious. And so if there's like incompatibility or there are questions, it's like get them answered so that you can make the most of your time. You can continue moving forward, whether that's continuing to grow together in a relationship maybe or not.
I feel like in my experience it's like, oh, like if I'm in a long-term relationship, I feel like I need to figure things out as soon as possible, and if there's like doubts in my mind still, like I need to figure that out.
Figure them out, bro. I'm also like, dang, if the next 4 years of our 20s passes by just as fast as the last 4, if not faster, it's gonna be gone in a little blinky blink. That's why we record these episodes.
So we can listen back on our conversations that we have late at night.
I feel like for me, that's part of why work feels like especially angsty sometimes. We have heard each other's fair share of like coming out of our rooms like after a meeting and being like, am I wasting my life?
Yeah.
Am I wasting these hours of the day?
Yeah. I mean, even my manager was like, your time at whatever company you're at is like extremely precious.
Yeah.
You know, 1 minute that you're spending at your workplace is like a very precious minute.
I mean, I think people have always advised if you want to pivot, make the decision, because is the time that you're spending now building towards something that is lasting for you? Or like, should you go get a move on building the skills towards your longer term career?
I feel like for me, like it's really easy if I'm not at like a very horrible situation that I can like continue to endure for a while. I feel like it's easy for me to be like, oh, this is like pretty comfy, even though I know that I could be doing something else or like working towards something. I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. And I'll just dilly-dally for a little bit. Obviously, I do think there's like time for dilly-dallying in your work, and working towards something and working towards a goal is like not always necessary.
Oh, that's a good thing to mention.
Yeah. But I do think that like, at least for me in my 20s, I'm like, well, I really do want to figure out what I'm best at, what I really like to do with the flexibility that we have in our 20s. I want to like be able to find that thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think dilly-dallying is like 1 minute somewhere is like another minute that I could be like reaching full potential, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've become more and more aware recently of how like saying yes to something is saying no to many other things that time could be spent on. It's some kind of pressure that I think should be moderated, like you said, because fun and leisure and rest and play is good too. But it helps me procrastinate a little bit less, I think. But then it also makes us angstier, because then I'm like, I can't procrastinate on like deciding if I'm gonna pivot, for example, or deciding relationship things, for example.
I was talking to someone and they were like,
wait, happy for you.
Thank you. Wow. She's so kind. He was basically like, if I'm going to settle down, have kids like at like 30 to 33. And I only have like a couple more years of my like really grind set mindset, work hard time in my life, in my career.
Because he values his career growth a lot. I think.
I think his like biggest goal that he's had for himself in his career is like, I want to start a company. So then he was like, okay, if that's the case, walking back from like 33 to now, I only really have a couple years to like build a company. And so he was like, I need to start now. So then he was like, okay, I'm going to quit my job and start my company.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that a couple of times. Or maybe like the general pattern is like, if you want to take a risk in whatever aspect of your life that you want to grow in or be challenged in, now is the time.
There was this guy who it was my coworker. He has been at my company for a while, and then he just quit to like join an AI company that's like 996, like paying him like triple the amount we were paying him. And we were like, oh, like why'd you decide to do that? And he was like, I think I really only have like 3 good years of grind set left. I need to get into AI right now. He was like, I gotta go. And I think he's been thinking about it for a long time and just like didn't push the button.
Okay. Yeah.
But then he was like, I have to do it now.
Gotta do it. Yeah. And don't doubt yourself, man. Yeah. That's so cool that he does it. I feel like an angsty part where I will doubt myself is knowing that there are many different things that I could invest in right now, and choosing the thing to take the risk on, or like to put my eggs in that basket right now, again, because we're like saying no to other things. I feel like I get angsty about like the opportunity cost, and so it's also navigating that.
We went to this concert for this band called Couch,
like funk pop.
We like drove all the way to Connecticut to watch their concert. In the middle, like the lead singer, she like shouted out her mom. She was like, oh, my mom in the back, like I had this conversation with her recently. They were singing, like they were doing a cover of Vienna.
And
then she was like, I was talking to my mom recently, and she was saying that like I have so many dreams, and like there's so many things that like I want to do with the band on my own. Like there's so many things.
Yeah.
And she was like, my mom was reminding me like we can like do it all, but like one at a time. Like try it one at a time, and like the world is our oyster. There's like so many things that I want to try and do. Yeah, but then she was like, take it slow, like one at a time. But it stuck with me. I do feel like there's like infinite things that we could invest our time in.
Right.
Even though we're not her and we're not in like a Berklee School of Music like funk pop group that like has made it. Like even without that amount of success, like I feel like we still have like so many options that we could go down and explore. Yeah. So I just like really related to her in that moment.
Yeah. And I think, at least for me, like in the face of all of those possible roads, it's easy to get like decision paralysis. But one thing that I'm grateful for is like through all of this angst and like existentialism about like who I want to be and like what I value, I think slowly I'm like sifting through and finding where priorities land. And as priorities like shake out a little bit more, I feel more confident in like, oh, I want to invest in this area, or oh, I want to grow in this thing. And that could look like not much change externally. Like maybe I develop a routine and I actually live it out day to day, week to week. And I realize that that is like growing me and shaping me into someone that I want to be. It's like both of those happening in tandem, right? Like you experiment, trial and error to figure out your priorities. And then that in turn helps shape like what you continue to say yes to and grow in versus not.
Yeah.
I like really sympathize with people who like have just exited college, and I'm thinking of like my sister, and are like, I don't know which thing to trial next, or like trial first, or whatever.
I feel that.
Yeah, because I was like, I think I was exactly there.
Yeah, same.
And then, yeah, I was like, I'm just going down this beaten path of like corporate, and we'll trial it for 2 years. I like hand shook with our third roommate, and we were like, at 2 years, we're going to sit down and evaluate. And then at 2 years, I was like, I don't know anything more than I did 2 years ago.
Yeah. It is just a time of trial and error. And we just might as well trial and error it all.
Yeah. One thing at a time.
I feel like that encompassed like both career and also hobbies and things you care about that you want to spend time in.
Yeah.
I remember us talking about in a previous podcast too, but like I remember like wanting to test out if I wanted to be a product manager. And in order to do that, I was like, okay, what things do PMs do on the day-to-day, and will I actually enjoy it? And then I was like trialing those things to see if like I was actually like enjoying.
I do also think in the culture of trial and error and like realizing sometimes that I took a wrong turn and I have to like go back, I think it's like very humbling. I'm like, oh, maybe I previously wanted to put my identity in that thing, and then I move on to the next thing. And I'm not seeking to put my identity in the next thing as much as the previous. And then I think it just kind of plods on and on. I'm like slowly peeling back, putting my identity in those things.
Even though like sometimes I think back like, oh, what did I even learn in the past 2 years? Now that I'm thinking about like, oh, like since college, what have I learned? I'm like much more clear on like what I want to be working on, where I want to spend my time.
Wait, facts.
Or like even with dating, like much more clear on what my next like 5 years could look like.
Yeah.
Or like long term, like even if the details aren't there, I'm like, oh, long term, like I definitely want a family, and like, or those like bigger picture things I have like much more clarity on. Yeah. I was telling you this the other day. I had like these friends who were like talking about like liking one of their really good friends.
Oh,
They were like, I think I have feelings for this girl that I'm really good friends with. Should I full send it? And then I think the perspective that I was trying to bring to the conversation is like, when you're like 26, you're probably not going to be like besties with your opposite gender friend for that much longer.
Yeah.
Because like either person might get married or like you move cities, whatever. I was like, you should just go for it. I get that you didn't want to mess up the friendship like 5 years ago when we were like in college or like just coming out of college. Like you wanted to preserve the friendship. Like I get that. But like now's the time, low-key.
How do you feel like the clock influences how we approach community and friendship?
I think the first thing that comes to mind probably is like when I think about settling down. Obviously this is not true because you can also make friends like once you're settled. But sometimes I think about how like I want to have like good female friendships by the time I get married. Like established friendships that I can have outside of my marriage, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like people to keep me accountable, people that I can like have fun with outside of marriage also. I feel like I think about that like subconsciously a lot.
Oh. At least for myself, frankly, like in a world where I'm married, like it's so much easier for me to just be comfortable and like slide into
Yeah.
like I'm gonna go to a social setting like with my partner and I can always just fall back on them and like they're my go-to.
Yeah.
And I probably will be less inclined or eager to
like
go
meet new
out there.
people and like put
Yeah.
yourself out there.
Yeah. I've been told, and I think I've witnessed, that like early years of marriage can be really difficult. And so yeah, I want my girlfriends to like cry on their shoulder or like vent in a way that like only sustained friends who like also get you will get.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe that's part of this like semi slippery slope lie that I believe, that like I have to be put together in order to get married. Like I want to like tie things in a bow before I get married. Like I want my life to be together. Which is totally not true. You're gonna have to get yourself together when you're married also. But I think that's part of it where I feel like, oh, right now's the time to find my community and like find people and like
I realize that there's so much time commitment involved in sustaining a marriage. And so I really appreciate, like, I think I recognize that my married friends are a lot busier and they just have a lot more going on in their mental space, and like things to take care of logistically even. I feel like they are extremely intentional, like even more intentional about their time, and like the time that they give to me, like for us to hang out, is like extremely thought out.
Yeah, exactly. And also because we're going to enter that stage and like
Supposedly.
And
Hypothetically.
like our priorities are going to be even more tight. Like I want to take advantage of this time now. But I think that could be a fallacy. I think like you can definitely make very, very great friendships when you're married.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a time pressure that I feel.
I love the idea of like my friendships are already part of like my daily rhythm or my weekly rhythm or something, so that in a supposed future where like I transition life stages into marriage or like settle down, friendship is a constant that just continues in.
That like you are able to, you're already used to that rhythm, so it
Yeah.
doesn't change as much when
Yeah.
you go into it. I feel like not only do I have pressure for myself because timeline is ticking, I feel like my parents try not to pressure me at all.
Same.
But I feel like I know that they have like regrets or lessons learned that they want to impute on me. And they're like, you know, like when I was your age, like I made this one wrong step in my career and like I wish I could go back and like change it.
Yeah.
And so like I think they are expressing now that kind of pieces of feedback, and it adds a little bit to the pressure of the timeline. I feel like though, because like my parents are a little bit more lax, I do feel like there are parents who are like, yo, you're 26, why aren't you dating? Why aren't you married?
I know.
Yeah. So I feel like on top of like the already existentialness that we give ourselves, there's also like parental pressure too.
I agree, and I'm very grateful that I don't feel like explicit pressure from my parents, but I'm keenly aware that like my mom loves getting like baby photos from her college friends whose kids have already had kids. Like she'll share photos of this family friend's daughter's daughter in our group chat.
Yeah.
There's just that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're feeling worried or stressed about any of those three categories in your 20s, work and dating and friendship, ditto. And ditto on behalf of our friends that inspired this episode.
Yeah.
We just take it a day at a time.
Yeah. Cool.
Hang in there, folks.
Hang in there. Truly, I don't think 26 is old. We still have so much life ahead of us.
Yeah.
Me in particular, because I'm 25.
Oh, yeah. And when we say like 20s, I think we're just referring to this general life period, like before settling down, whenever, however that happens. And so like that can be, you know, mid 30s, late 30s, like never
40s.
Yeah. So
that's true.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, like a natural angst that we get. But obviously, like people who are older than us are like what are you saying? Like, you're literally so tiny. Yeah. So I just feel like there's just an imminent pressure in our heads that might not even exist in real life.
Yeah, maybe we need to release it a little bit.
Yeah. I'm just saying that because I know it in my head as a disclaimer, but I don't believe it in my heart.
Ah, okay.
So, anyway.
Nice.
Time to sleep.
Good night.
Good night. Do-do-do. Do-do-do.